Hi, I'm Bob,
And I'm Sherry.
and this is Mostly Politics with Bob and Sherry.
And today we have Don Nevills, who we have had the pleasure of interviewing before. And Don, you're running for state representative, challenging Austin Davis. And today we also have the pleasure that his wife, Paula, is joining us for this interview as well. So welcome, the two of you.
Hello.
Thank you. Hello. Appreciate you having us on.
Yeah.
So, Don, tell us a little bit about yourselves, your district, and why you chose to run.
Sure. Thanks, Bob. My district is PA 35. That includes Clairton, McKeesport, Duquesne, Versailles, South Versailles, Portview, Liberty Borough, Lincoln Borough, uh, a little part of West Mifflin, West Homestead, Whitaker, and White Oak. The reason I'm running, and there's many reasons, I take a look around and I look at the world we're living in right now, and I can't help but notice we're losing this country, obviously. And it doesn't seem like many people want to get out there to do anything about it. So I felt I should step up and make my run for state representative, because we all know that all these laws and restrictions and stuff begin at a local level. They start here. So we need to make sure that we do things right for the people. The other reason I'm running is because I spent 14 years in the Navy, and that really put a standard on how things are accomplished for me in my life. And when I look at these politicians in office that get elected today, who most of them get elected because of poor voter turnout, we have really poor representatives in office that aren't representing us at all. They're representing their needs and their party needs. And I think no matter what party you are, we're all tired of seeing that. So I am in it to make a change for the better and for the people.
Paula, how long have you been married to Don, and what kind of person that he is that made you feel he will represent your district very well and good?
Well, me and Don have been married 24 years. We met in a very unique way. He actually was working at a tattoo shop, and me and my sister went in, and he asked my sister, who was very heavily covered with tattoos at the time, if she would marry him. And actually, my sister said no. And
Thank God.
yep, we went out to eat that night. 6 months later, I moved in, and we've been together for 24 years. So it was a unique meeting, but it's worked, it's lasted, and Don is a very loving, giving, caring person. Always has been. Always cared about his community. What's going on with the country. Being in the military has showed him what it's like all over the world, and people don't realize just how good they have it here. And he has always been one to step up and try and find a solution to the problem. And it's the way our country is now, it's a hard thing to a hard question to answer. What can we do to fix it? But I think he would definitely have the answers to do that. He's always been about community.
That's great.
Don, you're running against Austin Davis. I guess he's running for state rep and lieutenant governor. Can you talk about that?
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up, because the way they go about this is really interesting, and I don't think that people understand how it works. So Austin is running for lieutenant governor and for the seat here in PA 35, like you said. Now, he is putting zero attention into the seat at PA 35, and he's putting 150% into his seat for lieutenant governor. Now, the goal for the Democratic Party is for him to win both seats. If he wins both seats, because they're expecting the people in PA 35 to just go blindly to the polls and vote D. If he wins both seats, he will obviously choose lieutenant governor. That leaves a vacant spot in PA 35. So at this point, the Democratic Party and not the people get to choose the replacement for that seat in PA 35, who they would then put into a special election to run against me for that seat. So It is taking the choice of the people completely out of the picture. They don't get to choose who replaces Austin to run against me in a special election. The Democratic Party does. So that to me totally disenfranchises the people from their vote. I call it the Pittsburgh parking spot. It's like somebody putting a chair out in the parking spot saying that's mine and we're going to hold it. And if I want to let somebody else in there, I can, but if not, I'm going to use it. And I just think that is a backdoor way of getting elected that goes against what the people believe and what the Constitution says.
Don, when people vote politicians into office to represent them, they go to Harrisburg and make laws and vote on different legislation that actually impacts everyday lives, especially on the local level. And I know you want to talk about Mr. Austin's voting record, so we're gonna just let you have the floor and talk about his records.
Well, thank you very much, Sherry. And yes, I do want to bring the attention, especially to the listeners or the viewers, about Austin's voting record, because this is where it boils down to the brass tacks. And is he really representing the people, or is he representing himself as a globalist that he is admitted to being, or is he representing the party? So I've researched his voting record many times. I do make posts on some of the votes he does, but I want to spell out just a few here for you so the people understand. All these that I'm going to talk about have already been voted on, and they were passed on a bipartisanship level, meaning both sides agreed to this, because everything I'm about to tell you here is common sense. And I just want you to think about these when I read them to you. I'm going to give you the bill number, basically what it's about, and just a brief description on what happened. So HB 1822, this extends protection for workers related to COVID-19, meaning if you had some issues from COVID-19 at work and you had to take time off, they couldn't fire you. Austin voted against that. Why? I don't understand. It's just a common sense thing. If you're having issues from COVID, something that they ran up the flagpole and said how horrible it was, but they can fire you if you have to step away from your job because of a COVID-related incident. It's not common sense. It's just not common sense. HB 129 requires all unemployment hearings to be held digitally. He voted no against this. Now, this makes it so hard for people to have an unemployment hearing when we have done, for the past 2 years, we've done video chats for just about everything under the sun. Why can't you do a video chat to take care of your unemployment? Austin voted against that. SB 381. This authorizes college athletes to profit off their name. This one hits home to me because we live in a really depressed district, and we all know that. However, we produce a ton of outstanding athletes from this area. Unfortunately, not all of those athletes can go on to become professional athletes. But in college, they make a name for themselves. And these colleges make tons and tons of money off these kids. And I don't even want to call them kids because they're adults now. Mm-hmm. They've graduated high school. They're out into real life. So these colleges make tons of money off them, use them for their talents, and then cast them aside. So I've talked to people about this, and they said, yeah, Don, but they're getting tuition and everything. And that's okay. I understand that. That should be part of the deal, but not all of it. These people should be able to profit off of their talents as soon as possible. And that, unfortunately, cuts into the school's profits. So Austin Davis voted against that, allowing you to profit from your name, but allowing schools to profit from it, because guess where he gets all his donations and money from? Schools and big corporations and all that. So he voted against you being able to make money off of your talent. And I just think, especially for this area, that was the wrong choice and shows that he is not using his common sense or voting for the people whatsoever. So now let's talk about safety in schools. HB 2275 established the Philadelphia Gun Violence Task Force. Again, passed under bipartisanship. Austin Davis voted against it. this would have helped take guns off the street from criminals that own them. So the Democrats always complain about gun violence and getting things off the street, but then he votes no against it, allowing the criminals to keep their guns and in return cause more crime, heartache, and discontent for the public. Again, common sense bill, voted the wrong way. HB 2524 limits incarcerated individuals' ability to request public records. Again, he voted no on that. So he's allowing criminals that have access to computers to search and possibly find out information on their own victims. How wrong is that? Again, Austin voted to allow it to happen. So if someone commits a crime against you and they're in prison and have access to a computer, they can still research your public records and find out anything they want about you. Again, like I said, common sense, voted the wrong way. Authorizing school police officers to make arrests, common sense, Austin voted no. Authorizing schools to arm security guards. And we're not talking haphazardly just throwing arms onto people that don't want to do it. This is about investigating the people, talking to the people who's eligible to carry a weapon, who knows how to use it, who's trained to use it. They should be able to carry a weapon to stop any of these tragedies that happen in these schools. Again, lack of common sense. Davis voted no.
So, Don, that bill just allows the school to do it, or it doesn't require the schools to have armed guards, does it?
It doesn't require them.
Okay, it just allows it for those that choose to.
Right. It's a request for public schools to arm their guard. Yes, thank you for pointing that out. I do get a little passionate about this because I live in this district, so I feel everything that he doesn't do for us. So let's get into a little bit about taxpayer concerns. HB 847. This one I just can't even understand it to save my life. Austin Davis wants to vote, or voted, that it was okay for people to buy cigarettes and tobacco products on their food stamps. So he wants to have the taxpayer buy cigarettes and tobacco products, and then he wants the taxpayer to take care of these people when they're in the hospital dying from cancer. It blows my mind. No. Another common sense issue not voted on properly. HB 747. This is how well he took care of the people during our COVID issue over the past 2 years. HB 847 prohibits using public assistance funds. I'm sorry. That was the last one. HB 747 authorizes retail stores to remain open with one staff member and one shopper during the COVID disaster. He said no. But it was okay for Walmart, Home Depot, and all these big giant box stores to stay open with multiple employees and multiple checkouts, but says no to the small business person that's just asking for one person in their shop at a time. Are you kidding me? This is why so many businesses closed during COVID. This is why we lost 2 of our businesses on the South Side because of restrictions like this, because of votes like this. Austin has no common sense again, and he's not voting for the people. HB 2536, appropriate funds for the emergency COVID-19 response. Why would you not want us to obtain emergency funds? Again, he voted against it. This last one I'm going to talk to you about really takes the cake. Again, this is as common sense as it gets. HB 184 increases penalties for assisted suicides. But let me explain this bill to you just a little bit. This is a vote to pass that increases penalties for individuals that assist minors or individuals with intellectual disabilities in committing suicides. So this bill was to increase penalties against people that helped minors or disabled, mentally challenged people commit suicide. And Austin voted against increased penalties. Now, I just, for the life of me, can't understand that. Bob and Sherry, maybe you have some insight on this, but how could you vote against anything like this and any of these other bills that I talked about? It just shows that he has absolutely no common sense. And I just can't understand why he's running again for this seat and they have him as a lieutenant governor candidate. It just amazes me.
So I just want to reiterate, you just went through all these bills. You're saying all these bills were passed bipartisan. That
That is
was
correct.
put into law. So it passed by the Republicans and Democrats, but these are the bills that he voted no.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So bipartisanly, we could all agree on the common sense of these bills and say, let's pass them, or let's say no to tobacco, with food stamps and so forth, but vote on them properly. They took care of it in the House, yet Austin voted the other way every time. That shows me he just obviously has no idea what he's doing. And I'm not trying to put Austin down. I'm just saying that Austin was groomed through high school into politics. He was put into politics by Brewster and Fitzgerald into a special election, and they are trying to steer him with not much success. So I'll leave it at that.
So, Dawn, did any Republicans vote no on any of those bills?
I'm sure glad you asked that question, Bob. Not one Republican voted no on these bills. Not one, which tells me there's a lot of common sense on this side.
Does the voters in your district knows all these bills?
I'm sure they don't, because there's no communication with our state representative. I've heard it all along the campaign trail, and myself. I've tried to contact him. I've sent emails. I've sent letters. There's never a response. If there is a response, it's usually a canned response, like an automatic email or something very simple from one of his staff. But you never get to the answers. And let's face it, most people don't dig into what politicians are doing. They just listen to the TV and vote what they think. So this is why I thought it was so important to get his voting record out there, because I'm not making any of this up. I posted one of his responses to a bill not long ago, and some lady jumped on my post and said it was fake news. So I just posted the link right to his voting record. I mean, I'm not going to lie about anything, but especially about something that is obviously you can prove instantly. So it is what it is.
Paula, I see you nodding your heads and shake your heads, agreeing with Don, a lot of things what Don said. And I know you're a devoted daughter, a wife, mother, and a grandmother. Now, in today's culture, a lot of the conservative women like you that want to carry out a traditional role of being a mom and a wife and a daughter are being looked down upon. What do you say to that?
Well, I think women are just as strong as men. So being a mom, a grandma, it's a big job. And I think we're very, very important in today's society. And we carry just as much role as a man does. We can do just as much as a man can do. So it's,
For instance, every time we've had a business or started a business, Paula's been right there with me 100% of the time.
24 years self-employed together.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, I'm in business.
Until COVID took it. Yep.
Paula,
Okay.
how heartbroken are you that you and Don has worked together for 24 years and built your business, and COVID took that away from you guys?
It's very hard. I'm sorry, I get emotional. It's very hard to lose something you worked so hard for. And it's nothing to do with what you've done or what you've accomplished. It's because they shut us down during COVID. And when you lose two businesses and you're at a loss as what you're going to do, it's very hard. It's a very hard thing emotionally, physically. It's hard. I take care of my mother. So, I had a lot to think about.
Don, you have read the legislation that Austin voted no, and I can understand, with how emotional Paula is right now, I can understand how you must be pretty angry about that.
I'm very angry because it was devastating to us. We had two businesses on the south side, and Governor Wolf kept enforcing these restrictions on the restaurants and the bars. and over and constantly, which slowed the traffic completely down on the south side. If you have a business that's not a restaurant, a bar, you definitely rely on the people coming down to the restaurants and bars on the south side. With the continued restrictions and a $3,200 rent, you can only survive so long. And unfortunately, we lost both of our businesses, and we worked for 20 some years to get to that point where we were doing so well, and it just pulled the rug out from under our feet, and really we had to restart everything.
And at that time, we had 6 other artists that we had to think about losing their employment too. So it was a lot, thinking about them and their families and what they're going to lose if we lose our business.
So we had to make a lot of tough decisions, and we did, and we lost a lot of things in the process, but we're strong and we've hung on, and we continue to hang on and look to the future, because nobody's there to help you when you fall. So you got to pick yourself up and just keep going. So
Well,
it's
you
been
men-
tough, but we've been getting through it.
Good. You mentioned your business were Southside. What were the names of your business?
I had Ice Nine Tattoo Studio, and I had Jolly Roger Tattoo Supply. Ice Nine, we ended up turning over to one of the artists whose husband had a really great job in the cracker plant, which of course the radical left tried to stop as well. They were able to keep the shop going, keep the artists employed, and get through that because they had the extra revenue coming in. The tattoo supply company, it dropped right away because that was mainly a cash flow business. It's a lot of money in, money out, supplies in, supplies out. It's a supply business, so you have to stay stocked. And then once the restrictions went into effect, I had to send a lot of product back because the finances weren't there to keep it going. So it was just a snowball effect. I had no option but to do what we did.
Our country, our community, state has been facing mental health problems, drug abuse, drug overdose problems. It's only gotten worse since COVID, and other things. I know in the Pittsburgh area, we're seeing more of the homeless tents and things. A lot of that's fed by drugs and mental health. So, what's your position on that in your district, and how do you see the issue? How's it been handled in the past? And what would you do differently?
Well, I think we've gotten to this point because of all the policy changes that happened when Biden took office and signed the executive orders left and right. Our inflation, our degradation of our energy sector, it's crushed jobs, it's crushed livelihoods, it's crushed businesses, and it's put people on the streets. And unfortunately, this is what happens when you have such horrible policies and high inflation and nobody to take care of you. I know that our mental health system has been laxed for decades, and we need to get back into a lot of mental health facilities, because what we're doing now is just putting people in jail for things that they really should be treated for. We're putting them in jail, they're serving their time, and they're kicking them back out on the street to repeat the same thing they're going to do again. And we have to tackle that. The part of tackling that is by getting our energy independence back. I mean, that right there is going to help with so many things, between jobs, bringing the inflation down, getting better paying jobs, because the energy sector brings in nothing but good paying jobs. That all will have an effect, and a snowball effect on everything, if we can get these things rolling. And that's what we have to focus on.
Paula,
And obviously closing the border. I mean, I'm running for a state rep, but we have to close that border, because the drug increase, the fentanyl increase, is just out of control. We have 300 people dying a day from fentanyl overdose, and nobody's doing anything. But when we had 300 people dying a day from COVID, they shut down the economy. So let's do something about these drugs coming over. And the first thing we could do is close the border and do it properly, like we're supposed to.
Paula, how worried are you for your grandchildren? I just recently read an article. These fentanyl that looks like candies are found in the U.S. Mexican border, and actually it was 15,000 of them were confiscated. But Halloween is coming around the corner, and people are passing out candies. So I know you and I have spoke a little bit about that. Can you tell the
Mhm.
viewers about how you feel about that?
Well, I have 4 grandchildren. I have one that is in school, and the rest are about to start school. And I know last year my grandson, being in school, came home every day with a headache because they had to wear a mask in school every day. Well, this year at least, they're back in school. They don't have to wear the mask. But like you said, the drugs that they're making them look like candy, it terrifies me that the kids even go out trick or treating because you don't know what these children are going to get. I remember growing up and we took our candy to be x-rayed because they were putting razor blades in them when I was a child. And now, I mean, you can't even x-ray it because it's not something they're putting in it. It's the actual candy. And that's even more scary because you don't, it looks just like a child's piece of candy. And that's terrifying, and like Don said, closing them borders are only going to help that drug flow come in here. You got to stop the drug flow for these kids. It's scary. It's scary to all parents, grandparents. It doesn't matter who you are. If you know a child, have a child, it's terrifying. All I want is my grandkids and everybody's kids to have a good education and be safe.
Don, the schools are a local and state issue. What do you see as the issues facing schools in your district uh, besides drugs?
Well, in my district, fortunately, there is some good schools, but there's also, what I see going on is more indoctrination than education. I think we need to get back to educating our students instead of indoctrinating them on the ways of uh, the 1 or 2% out there. They're all going to find out how the world works, but while they're in school, we need education. Now, we have been constantly pumping money into these public schools just every year, year after year after year after year. And it's not getting us anywhere except deeper into the hole. We're still 35th or whatever in math and science. We're real low. That's why I'm for school choice, because we have to let the tax dollars follow the child. When you send all this money to a school that's supposed to be for education and then they redirect it into some pet project of theirs that doesn't benefit the students at all, we have to stop that. It's the same with all the monies coming from the state. For instance, Austin Davis spent $18 million on a hotel in Clairton that's going to benefit about 40 people. Well, that $18 million could have definitely benefited the rest of the community with some of our infrastructure problems that we have. So when the money comes in, it has to be spent in the right area. And when it comes to education, it needs to be spent on education.
And keeping security in these schools so these kids can have a good education. They have to have security in the schools.
Absolutely.
Paula, you have grandkids that's going to start kindergarten, pre-K or kindergarten.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on the education of gender identity or being taught to children that's as young as pre-K to third grade?
It's not right. It's not. It's messing the kids up. You're confusing them and trying to make them believe something that they know isn't right, or trying to make them feel like, oh, you should be this way. That's not right. Let a child be a child until a child can make them decisions for themselves.
And
A
that,
parent should not make a decision on what gender, or a teacher or anything like that, on what gender a child should be. A child is born male or female until they, are old enough and decide maybe, hey, I want to do that, then that's fine. But you can't push that on children that age. It's just not right.
and adding to that, I mean, they are literally putting very serious adult
Yes,
situations
on
on
children.
children whose minds cannot comprehend that. And
It's
that's
just
just beyond
confusing
belief to
them.
me.
Yeah, it's very confusing to a child.
So, Don, if you be elected, what are the first thing you would be focused on when you get to the State House in Harrisburg?
Well, I think the first thing we need to focus on is getting our economy corrected. If we start by fixing the economy, meaning what we have here, our God-given resources, and utilizing our energy that we have, getting back to energy independence, I believe that will start to cure 90% of the problems that we're facing right now.
Do you have a question?
Okay. Is there are there anything we didn't ask about that you guys wanted to talk about?
One thing I just want to say is I want to get the message out to the people to vote. Please get out and vote. We get people in office like Summer Lee and Austin Davis because people don't get out and vote. When Summer Lee won her spot, it was a 23% voter turnout. If you're not coming out to vote, you can't complain about anything. There is enough people that if they got out and vote, we could have the proper representatives in office, but they have to get out and vote. I can't emphasize that enough. Now, we're stuck with Act 77 right now, so we have the mail-in ballots. I'm not discouraging anybody from using those. If you can't get there to vote, use your mail-in ballot. It's okay. Until we can get our voting laws back to where they should be properly, we have to utilize what we have. So please vote. Please get out and vote. That's my message.
Very, very important to get your voice heard. If you don't, then you can't make a change.
I know in Allegheny County, they completely get rid of all the drop boxes. There's only one drop box now. It's in the Allegheny County voter's office, and it will be
Right.
guarded. So people worry about there's drop boxes. That's not
Okay.
happening, at least in Allegheny County. I don't know if you wanted to
Okay.
just like add
Sure.
on to that.
Let me ask: don't you just mail them back? I mean, you have to use a drop box.
You can mail them back or you can use a drop box.
Okay.
Fortunately, the drop boxes in Allegheny County, which could have been corrupted very easily, have been taken away. There's only one. I believe it's at the Department of Elections, and it's a guarded box.
Mhm.
This is so important because there was anomalies with the mail-in ballots. I'll leave it at that, but we need to get back to the way it was.
Dawn, are you going to put those voting records on your website so viewer can get to your website and see those specific records you mentioned?
Absolutely. You'll find out when I get elected. I don't think people understand what transparency is, but they're going to find out what it is when I get elected.
Yes.
Can you tell people what your website is?
Yes, it's electdonnevils.com.
People want to help you. How can they help you for your campaign right now?
If they want to help, they can either contact me through the website. If they have any literature of mine, my cell phone number is on there. It's not a recorded line. I mean, if you get the message, leave a message and I'll call you back because I believe in communicating with the people. I stay up till midnight or 1 o'clock every morning talking to people and answering questions. So I have no problem with that. I welcome it.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you guys. We really appreciate you spending time with us.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it.